What's up, guys, and welcome, Daily Theologians. A high school football coach went all the way to the Supreme Court. Joe Kennedy, right here of Bremerton High School, finally won. He was getting losses all the way through the court system because he was praying silently by himself before football games or after football games. Either way, it says Kennedy prayed during a period when school employees were free to speak with a friend, call for a reservation at a restaurant, check email. Oh, it's good that people can still do those things as state employees. They do still have, I guess, lives and rights and things that they're allowed to do. Justice Neil Gorsuch delivered the court's opinion, being joined by Chief Justice John Roberts, Clarence Thomas, Samuel Alito, Amy Coney Barrett, and Brett Kavanaugh. Now, the scary thing here is 3 people voted against him, that he can't pray. I mean, it was 6-3, and he was losing the whole way. But anyways, he won, and so he was praying, and the free exercise of free speech in the First Amendment protects expressions like Mr. Kennedy's. The Constitution and the best of our traditions counsel mutual respect and tolerance, not censorship and suppression for religious and non-religious views alike. Every view is religious. This is the problem. Saying you cannot be yourself at your school if it is a legitimate thing that is in the best interest of others. See, this is the problem. You can't have freedom for all ideas. As much as people think free speech means freedom of all ideas, there has to be a standard of morality. There has to be a standard of truth. This is why the child thing going on with the drag queen story times is clearly wrong and evil and should not be allowed as free speech. Okay, that's evil, abusive, and clearly morally wrong. Well, you have to ask, by what standard can something be allowed or not allowed? It cannot be equal protection for evil practices. And so to do this right, you have to be able to tell the difference between a Satan club and a reality club that cares about neighbors, that loves people, that helps people, that views reality correctly. But see, the problem is, if all things are equal, and your emotions are what drive what is true, then you're going to end up with an inability to enforce common sense, which is what we're seeing in our nation. Anyways, Justice Sonia Sotomayor wrote a dissent joined by Justices Stephen Breyer and Elena Kagan. Oh, boy, look at that. Is that the new justice? Probably getting in on this. I'm not sure. Anyways, she argued this court consistently has recognized school officials leading prayer is constitutionally impermissible. Really, you can't pray in school, even though we did it for, 150 years before we discovered that we couldn't pray. That's interesting. Official-led prayer strikes at the core of Constitution, protections for religious liberty students and their parents as embodied in both the established clause of free exercise of faith clause of the First Amendment, she wrote. So it looks like this decision does disservice to schools and young citizens. They serve as well as to our nations. Well, that actually doesn't make sense. It strikes at the core of our constitutional practice. How does it strike at the core of your protections? I think they're viewing protections in the negative instead of the positive. I think because that sentence, if you read it, you're like, I agree with that. But that's how they think. Everything is inverted. They can't tell day from night. They can't tell light from dark. This decision, she says, does a disservice. Former U.S. Solicitor General First Liberty Network argued Kennedy's case before the justices, praying by himself at the game. This is a great victory for Coach Kennedy and the First Amendment. I would agree with that. A devout Christian, Kennedy has a practice of going to the 50-yard line. Here we are. After high school football games, so the game's over, praying, often with fans and students joining him. There's nothing wrong with that. They're choosing to do that, and you don't have to believe what he believes, but that's certainly his right to pray. And again, this goes back to the standard. By what standard is it right or wrong? If it's the other example with the children, then obviously that's wrong. Kennedy sued the school in 2016, so it's been 6 years of fighting this. And I remember when this came out. First, Liberty was representing Kennedy because no teacher or coach should lose their job for expressing their faith in public. Right. They're trying to take reality and push it into the dark, and they're trying to pull out an inverted view of reality and morality and put it in the light as the standard and get people to bow down to it, which is not going to go well. 3-judge panel of the U.S. Court of Appeals in Ninth Circuit ruled against the coach in 2017 and initially refused to hear the case in 2019. So this has been a long battle. In March of last year, a 3-judge panel again ruled against Kennedy, so he's been losing the whole way. There's no doubt that an objective observer familiar with the history of Kennedy's practice would view his demonstration as BSG's endorsement of a particular faith. Really? Why? You're viewing it as endorsement because the guy's a Christian? You know, I did evangelism with Hindus, and we got kicked out because of the ministry we were in because they thought it was potentially too direct, doing evangelism publicly way away from downtown Nashville, away from the place we were living and getting to know people, to do evangelism there in more of a relationship style. And even the Hindus were saying, "You're a Christian. Of course, you're going to talk about Christian things." It makes sense to them because we believe it, and it's true and right. And it doesn't make sense to outsiders when you enforce rules that force someone to be someone they're not, if it's a morally right and good practice, okay? And this is why I'm drawing the distinction. Not all rights and ideas are right or moral. And so, therefore, based on reality, they should not be allowed. So you can't have every right like the Satan gloves. You can't have, it doesn't work that way. You have to have a standard of truth and righteousness. And that standard is the Bible. People cannot believe that, but you have to have a standard. And when our nation was clear on that, the nation was headed in the right direction because you had a standard of righteousness that exalts a nation. But the foolish people are tearing it down because they have no foundation for their beliefs. Anyways, this is a good decision for this coach. It's a good decision for the school system in this way, Joe Kennedy and Bremerton High School. And hopefully he'll be out there praying and teaching and leading the team again, because this is good and right. This is what the nation needs. So let me know what you think. Take a moment, leave a comment below if you're still watching this, and remember to hammer that like button, like the 95 Theses. Thank you so much, and God bless.